Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
July 17, 2020, the See No Evil edition. And we'll start with that story from the Wall Street Journal. It turns out that Germany's top financial supervisor received detailed warnings about deceptive financial practices at Wirecard starting as early as 2008, but repeatedly declined to investigate the allegations, instead turning against the accusers. In a position only Bill Barr or former SEC Chair Christopher Cox could appreciate. For more than a decade, investors, U.S. authorities, journalists, and others warned of possible fraudulent accounting at Wirecard. Yet, as the red flags piled up, the Germany's equivalent of the SEC played down the allegations, kicked the ball to other agencies, and delayed examining the company's accounts. Were they paid off? Were they corrupt? Or are they just inept? Well, at this point, we don't know, but it's a very sad state of affairs around Germany's financial regulator, particularly with its treatment of Wirecard. Next up, the Washington football team, whose name has been removed, and we will, of course, not name, has hired a prominent D.C. law firm to perform an independent review of the company's culture, policies, and allegations of workplace misconduct. 15 former employees came forward to say they were sexually harassed or verbally abused by former team staffers. First of all, given the complete corrupt culture of the Washington football team, there's no surprise there. But you have to remember, this is a very male-dominated culture, so getting out of hand is probably par for the course in a pro football team. And Washington would certainly lead the way for inept conduct going forward. Next up, in a scathing order, the CDC has extended the cruise ship ban from sailing to be as late as the end of October, 1st of November, as no sail order has been extended. It's unclear. There's several different aspects to the ban in terms of length, but the CDC said on Thursday it extended the ban on no sailing to ensure the sailings resume with proper precautions. Obviously, cruise lines were a huge problem around COVID-19 transmissions. The cruise lines really not only did not take adequate protections and precautions, but clearly put people at risk for their actions in failing to report, failing to treat, and failing to take care of their passengers. And finally, CVS Pharmacy was fined for prescription errors and poor staffing at pharmacies. Regulators found 4 locations in Oklahoma that had these problems. The fine, only $125,000, is relatively small. The move validates concerns raised at multiple drugstores across the country by pharmacists and technicians who say understaffed workplaces are putting the public at risk. I was particularly interested in the poor staffing allegation. This is something that the government regulators focus on in FCPA compliance programs, and it's interesting to see that the government is now looking specifically at staffing. Of course, during the COVID-19 crisis, this is probably not too surprising, but what is dramatic about CVS is even during this major health crisis, they continue to understaff at these pharmacies. So good to see some regulatory hammer come down. It's going to be interesting to see what this means for the pharmaceutical retail business, and also really what it means for other government agencies such as FCPA regulations. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Daily Compliance News, which is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio.